Hey everyone, it's me, Ben, or GNC Centric. A few days ago, I wrote a piece on Medium about my experience of sex dysphoria, and I just want to go a little bit into that right now. So, before I say anything, the link to that article is in the description. Um, so, maybe read that before if you want, or not. So, first, I just want to cover what is the difference between gender dysphoria and sex dysphoria. So, gender dysphoria is external and has to do with people's perception of you. So, I feel like most of the time this has to do with passing and having dysphoria over whether or not you're passing. It sometimes has to do more with social roles, whether or not you're fulfilling social roles that you feel you should be able to fulfill because of your identity. Sex dysphoria is not the same. Sex dysphoria is internal and it's personal. So that's like your own personal discomfort with your body. That's a pretty vague description, personal discomfort with your body, which is the description that most people will give when you ask them what is dysphoria. I am now going to explain in detail about how I experience breast dysphoria. Also, just I probably will say top dysphoria and chest dysphoria, both of which are language that trans people use as a way of distancing themselves from their female biology of having breasts. So it's a kind of a way of not talking about it so they don't have to think about it because it causes them like pain. So in this video I'm going to try and say breasts, but if I slip up, sorry. So when I was young, I'm not sure how old, maybe 10, I remember when my chest started growing. I didn't know what was happening, but I remember putting on my seatbelt one day in the car and feeling like there was a bruise or something in between like my ribs and like the seatbelt, or like there was something there. I was like, what is this? I told my mom right away, I'm like, we need to go see the doctor. And her response, I don't remember what it was, but she dismissed that it was an issue and we didn't talk about it. But then, a few weeks later, we were at my pediatrician, and at some point around the end, I was alone with my pediatrician, and I told her something is wrong. And she just looked at me very sympathetically, and she was like, I don't remember what the words were, but it was the sentiment of, oh, you poor child, you're just going through puberty, just growing up. And she asked me, like, don't you talk to your mother about these things? And I said no. And she said, okay, like, you can come back and ask me more questions or something. I don't really remember much more than that, but what I do remember was that was her answer. That was my mother's response to the situation. Nobody thought this was a serious problem. I was so uncomfortable, so unhappy that this foreign thing was invading my body and nobody was taking it seriously. Nobody thought it was an issue. I just remember being annoyed, pissed off, and upset and alone feeling. Yeah. So then, my chest kept growing, to my utter dismay. Between the ages of 12 and 14, kind of tried to accept my femalehood. So, I wore actual bras, and I wore skirts. I was into fishnet tights for a while. I had all these studded belts that were like different colors, and every day my outfit was like, everything was different colors, like orange pants, blue shirt, green hat, purple scarf, red shoes. Like everything would be a different color. And I always had like, it was feminine, but it was crazy. And it felt like everything was a costume. It was very performative. I felt like I was dressing up a doll, kind of. And then people were seeing like this costume and not me. And of course I wasn't comfortable with my chest, so the stuff I wore was pretty covered me pretty well. Um, then, as I mentioned in my other video, around 13, 14 years old, I discovered Tumblr and YouTube and realized I was trans, or decided I was trans, depends on your point of view. And that's when I started wearing sports bras. So I went to Sports Check and I tried on the sports bras in the change rooms, and I purposely bought sports bras that were one size too small. And I also had some compression shirts, like Under Armour. Those are really good. Like, regardless of your gender identity or whatever, if you're just a woman who doesn't like wearing a bra, I recommend those compression shirts. They're great. But, yeah, so I had this, and this was my new plan for the situation. In addition, I cut up some old tights. Like, I would cut the legs off and use, like, the abdomen part here, or old leggings, ace bandages, like anything I could find to make my chest flat. But it ended up being that on a daily basis what I was wearing was like one too small sports bra, a tank top, a small shirt, and a big shirt. So I was wearing like 4 layers most days. And eventually I started getting this pain like in a strip around where the band of the sports bra was. Up to that point, I had been wearing the sports bras all the time. Like, I would put it on in the morning and I would take it off when I went to sleep. Or sometimes not even when I went to sleep. But I started getting pain, so I would take it off every day when I got home from school. And then I would have the pain for like a little while after, but it wasn't a huge deal. But over time, the pain got worse and worse. And being a Tumblr child that I was, on Tumblr, people would say, don't use ace bandages, don't use sports bras, binders are safe. So I thought, oh, I've been using the sports bras, they're not safe, so I need to get a binder that is safe. So, at this point, I had a younger trans friend, who was a trans guy, and a bunch of other friends. And we all went to the one place in my city where you could buy a binder, because I couldn't order it online. Like, my parents would get a C in the mail, of course. So we all went there together. It was a sex toy store. I had friends on Twitter who their full-time job was reviewing sex toys. This is me, 16 years old, I think. And, so the concept wasn't weird to me. I was in, like, the whole sex-positive, kink-positive environment, but actually being confronted with all that stuff was really weird. And also my dysphoria. There's so much phallocentric stuff in there. Or phallic stuff, my bad. But yeah, the person behind the counter there was a gender non-conforming female. I'm not sure of their identity. But, they were super friendly to me and my friend. And we tried on the binders in the washroom and picked the ones we liked. I think they were like $60. And we left. When we left, it was pretty late. We were hungry for dinner, so we stopped at a sushi place. As soon as they seated us, I ran to the washroom. It was like a single washroom with just like one door. There was no stall. And once I got inside, like, I took everything off and put the binder on and put my shirt on top. I remember the bright green of my shirt. I remember the way my shirt was pretty thin and it lay completely flat. I was so shocked. It was so much better than I thought it would be. And looking in the mirror, like, something in my chest kind of released. And I was like, in my mind, all I could think was, this is what it's supposed to look like. This is how it's supposed to be. This is me. And I was so happy. There was a tightness. It was different than the sports bra, so I assumed it was just a healthier tightness of some kind. It was tight. I didn't have trouble breathing, but I realized I couldn't stuff myself as much because then my stomach would, like, it was inside there too. Which felt weird. Anyway, so after a few weeks or a few days, whatever, the pain came back, but this time while I was wearing the binder. And in my mind, I was like, this was my last option. I don't have any other options other than surgery at this point, and of course that was not really an option. I wasn't out to my parents. I knew they wouldn't be supportive. Um, I was pretty young. They don't give 14-year-olds at that time. They didn't give 14-year-olds double mastectomies. Anyway, so it was painful, but I was in denial about it because it was my only option. So I just kept wearing it a lot. But the pain was so bad that I would have these episodes where I would just stop breathing and I would have to run to the washroom wherever I was, like at school, in the mall, whatever. Run to the washroom, take off all of my layers of clothing and my binder, and then massage the sides of my rib cage or massage the front of my rib cage and like push on my ribs, like make myself breathe, because my body just stopped breathing. That was horrifying. That's really scary. It's like you're drowning, but there's nothing you're drowning on. You're just not breathing. Um, so I had to start wearing it less and less, and then I would just be wearing many layers of clothes in between, not the sports bras. So I got to the point where I was wearing my binder one day a week, and then I would be in pain for like 2-3 days after, just wearing layers of clothes, no sports bra or binder. Um, yeah, that it was. I can't believe how much denial I was in over how much pain I was in. I can't believe I kept doing that to myself. But I'm going to tell you about the last time I wore my binder. Then I realized that I had to stop wearing binders. I was 17 years old. I had been wearing my binder for almost a year at this point, I think. My school was doing a musical. We had a really big theater for 800, an 800 people audience. And it had a real curtain, and it had multiple backdrops, and it had like a deck on the top where people would like drop down the different screens, and that was my job to drop down the screens and the curtains. And so you would sit up there, which was there was a 2-story ladder you climbed up in the dark in the back of the theater, and you would just sit on this black like little pedestal thing with the railing, and I just like would have my laptop and be watching Netflix with a headphone in one ear and have the headset on the other ear, and they'd be like, okay, drop this thing, and I would do it. It was kind of cool, and I'd watch all the people dancing underneath. But one day we were having a dress rehearsal, I think, and I just stopped breathing, and I was wearing my binder, and so my options were to either climb down the 2 stories in the pitch black or to go on this catwalk over top of the audience, and into like this black room, and then there's like a sound booth and then a door off to the hallway of the school. So I chose, instead of climbing down to where the stage is, I ran to the back, and I was in that black room, and there was nobody in the sound booth over there, and there was nobody gonna come on the catwalk, and I just like took everything off, and I like massaged myself, forced myself to breathe, and I was panicking and freaking out, and I was crying because it's so horrifying not being able to breathe, and it's just horrifying. I can't explain it. So I put my binder in my pocket, and I was wearing all black clothing, and it was like black and dark backstage, obviously. So obviously nobody was looking at my chest or anything, but I felt extremely self-conscious about it. And that situation was so bad that I realized I could never wear my binder again because the situation, it was too painful, it was too dangerous. Yeah, as a teenager, and still I'm a musician, and I have a repetitive strain injury in my wrists. So I spent a lot of time at physio and chiropractors and acupuncturists, stuff like that. When I was 17, after I stopped wearing my binder, I was with the chiropractor, and he was adjusting something on my back, and he was feeling my rib cage, and he stopped, and he said, "Do you know your ribs are bent?" And I was like, "What do you mean bent?" And he's like, "They're concave in like this." And I was like, "How is that possible?" And he asked me, like, "Do you wear a really tight bra or something?" I was like, "Oh my god, my binder." And he got me to sit up from the table, and he asked me to breathe, and I was breathing out the sides and up the top instead of using my diaphragm in the middle, because the binder wouldn't let me use my diaphragm. So he said to me, "You're using the wrong muscles to breathe. That's not how you should breathe." So he showed me how I'm supposed to breathe. I'm going to show you now how I breathed after the binder and how I'm supposed to breathe. So after the binder, I breathe like this. I'll show you in the front. So out the sides and up the top. How you're supposed to breathe is like this. With the diaphragm from here. So he showed me that, and I was shocked. Trying to breathe like that, I felt like something was stretching in the middle. I felt like I was exercising, but that's breathing. You shouldn't be exercising breathing. So that was really scary. And even though I had already decided not to wear a binder, at that point I was like, you cannot wear a binder. You literally have damaged yourself. Somebody else noticed how much you damaged yourself. Yeah. Then when I was 19, I had moved away to university, and there was this new design of binder that came out, and it was supposed to be like easier to breathe in than all the former ones. And I bought it and tried it out for a while. But the damage to my chest was so extensive that like I couldn't wear anything. Even if I wanted to wear a sports bra or an Avril bra or a binder, I couldn't, because the pain would come back. So I don't know. I had that binder, I wore it a few times, it hurt, and I realized, like, don't be stupid, you went over this already. I'm 22 now, and still, if I take my iPhone and I put it on my chest and I'm lying on my back in bed, I gradually will breathe more and more shallowly until I'm breathing like just a little bit, and I'm using like the sides of my ribs, but only if I'm lying on my back. So it's not an issue, but something permanent has changed. And for passing, or for getting, making it look like your chest is flatter, something I definitely suggest that helped me a lot, if you're trying it without compression, is get button-up shirts and leave them open and wear a t-shirt underneath, because then you have vertical stripes that kind of draw the eye that way. And if you have them like in front or like on top of your chest instead of on the sides, then it kind of draws the eye away. Same thing with hoodies. Yeah, and also what I would do is I would wear like a size small tank top and then like a size medium t-shirt, or like a size small t-shirt and a tank top and then a size large t-shirt, you know, so that you have something smaller and something bigger, so there's like more like clothing in between. Yeah. If you have any specific questions, if you have any ideas for future videos, anything like that, put it in the comments. I'm here. Thanks for watching this video. Bye.